Welcome to Stars Podcast, your growth mindset mecca. We are all about self-leadership principles here at Stars Podcast. Our guests come from all over the world with very unique stories of how they hack their way into success. As you'll quickly find out, nothing happens overnight. And as always, enjoy the journey. Shake fast and pour hard. This episode is brought to you by Quiver Coffee. True, cold, nitro. Coffee that is just coffee and water. It's nitrogen infused for freshness, zero additives for taste. We also make America's favorite decaf nitro. As we said, it's natural energy, plant-based, unpasteurized, free from additives, always cold, brewed cold, shipped cold. I'll tell you what, I got a fresh pack in my fridge, what was it, a week ago? I drank the teas, the coffees, and all of them were amazing. I highly recommend the coffee. If you want something for no caffeine, go with the hibiscus. It's a little bit tart, but boy, it quenches your thirst. All of our listeners get a 10% discount when they use the code STARS, all caps, STARS, at checkout. Shake fast and pour hard. Stories Studios in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania. Welcome back to Stars Podcast. Today I'm joined by none other than our Web3 standards engineer, Alyssa, co-hosting today, and then a special guest, Saba Saleem. She is somebody that I have been following for over a year now at this point in her Web3 journey. She is a game developer. She is also a kickboxing black belt. She is a recent mom. Her and her husband co-founded a game development company, and she is just doing amazing things in the Web3 space with her NFT gaming with FuZZieMints. So welcome to the show, Saba. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Ron. And Alyssa, thank you so much.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So I got to dive right into it. Kickboxing, black belt. Where does it start? Like, were you like a kid doing kickboxing? How did that journey start?
No, this was, I think, around 10 years back now. I was working at a kickboxing center. I started working at a weight loss center as an instructor. And the guy who owned that also owned a kickboxing center, and he's a second degree black belt. So their receptionist kind of was leaving very, very soon. And so my boss was like, oh, I see potential in you. Why don't you come on and, as part of your perks, we will train you for free, and we're going to give you the accelerated program, just like you don't have to do a year and a half to get your black belt. You can get it in 6 months because you'll be training every day. So I was like, yeah, that was the only reason I actually went there, because I was super interested in kickboxing. Mm-hmm. So I went there, I worked there with him for a while, and I got my black belt in around 6 to 7 months.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's been a lifetime now. I can still kick high, but I'm so not fit anymore.
Yeah, that's one of those sports, if you don't do it all the time, all those little ligaments and tendons, and it all sort of tightens back up pretty quickly.
Yeah, so. But your body remembers though, right? You remember all the moves and the kicks and all the combinations, but it's just that, you could do it, but then you'll be in bed for the rest of the day.
No,
Definitely.
listen, I tore my ACL doing some crazy stuff at kickboxing, and it wasn't really kickboxing related. It was more like a crazy exercise our instructor was having us do for the cardio portion of it. And while I don't do kickboxing anymore, I'm pretty certain I could still kick someone's face if I had to. And I would cry about it afterwards because it would hurt. I'd probably break a hip or something, but you know what the point is that muscle memory does make a big it makes an impact for sure.
Yeah, it does. You never forget.
Well, what an added benefit too from working at that place that you got to train for free. I love that piece of it. A lot of martial arts studios end up doing that, where they almost get like hired help through service. They end up.
It's amazing.
I love it though. It gives people an opportunity to engage in martial arts when maybe they typically wouldn't, because they don't have the cash to do it, and or even the time outside of work schedule. Those are also the things that I've seen inside of martial arts, and I'm like, oh man, I really like that about the space in general. So um so dive back a little bit further. So martial arts, does that intermingle with becoming a game developer at all? Like where does that transition happen? Because that
Well,
was
I
10
don't
years
think
ago. So
that was 10 years ago. I don't think it's related at all, though. I mean, it's related with my boss, who is my mentor. He still is my mentor.
okay.
And so he's an entrepreneur. So he had a kickboxing business, he had a weight loss business, and then I kind of worked my way up. I became his number two. I was like acting CEO when he wasn't there. And so he really laid the foundation for me, I guess, to want to become an entrepreneur. And he was such an amazing person to work with. He still is. That, you know, if I couldn't work under him, I don't think I would have been able to work under someone else after like working under him as a boss, because he truly valued. He first of all, he really saw people. He saw people and what they were capable of, and saw the potential in them, and that made them bring out the best in themselves, including me. Like everything he used to teach, he used to see me. Like I graduated from high school. I don't have a degree, so I worked my way up to general manager in his company, and then he also opened a consultancy later on, a management consultancy, and because of my experience then, I was good enough to actually consult people in their businesses without having a degree. And so he took me into his management consulting business as well. So I was there with him for around 3 to 4 years. After that, you know, I was confident enough. I had enough skills. I had enough experience to start up my own business, to become an entrepreneur myself. And that's what I did in 2018 with my husband. So, you know, I was like, I'm 35. I'm not going to be 35 again. I've got to go for my dreams. And I think I've learned enough to be able to venture on my own. Learned enough specifically about how to fail and then keep going. I think that's the biggest lesson that I learned from him, is how to fail graciously, how to learn from it, and how to keep going.
Yeah, I love that piece of it too. And how amazing is it to just have an opportunity to start learning, almost like an apprenticeship
Yeah.
underneath of a CEO that's doing things that are outside of the scope of, what we'll call the normal lifestyle. What was something that like early on did he say or do or put you in a situation where you probably shouldn't have succeeded, but you did? Um, were there any situations like that?
Oh, there are situations like that all the time. So he would obviously throw me into things that I had no experience in, that I had no training in. Including martial arts. I still call him my sensei, by the way, because he truly is in a lot of ways. And so I think the biggest thing that I learned from him is that you cannot grow inside your comfort zone. So if you're feeling uncomfortable and you're doing while you're doing something, that means you're growing. And so I think I keep reminding myself that, because I feel uncomfortable a lot. But speaking, things like that are things that I've learned from him. Just kind of putting me, like, sometimes in the beginning of a class in martial arts, he just tapped me on the shoulder and be like, "You're in charge." And so, be like, "Oh my gosh," and we had like a different like kids, different age groups of kids. We had the kids starting from 3 months, not 3 months, 3 years old, all the way up to teenagers. And so I would dread the teenage class, obviously. And then sometimes he would just tap me on the shoulder and be like, "You're in charge, sensei." And then, taking that class and building that confidence. And I think what I learned from him is, go outside of your comfort zone. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah, definitely having that confidence. Hey, Saba, whenever you're talking, can you pull that mic off of your? Yeah,
Okay.
it's like
All right.
every time it's rubbing, and I'm getting a lot of static. Sorry,
Sorry.
sorry to
I,
make you hold
I
that.
I hear that a lot about my mic, but I don't know if it's the rustling from the clothes or the mic itself. Let me know if that's okay.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, and that's really the what a lot of people end up saying is about just getting outside of the comfort zone and almost being put into the trial by fire. You hear that a lot, and what I like about your sensei, we'll call him, application was like slowly introducing that and giving you an opportunity to get a taste of it, come back, not have to do that all the time. is what it is. And that's something that is like a recent theme that we keep talking about on the Twitter spaces and on the podcast, is about giving yourself just enough friction to make it challenging, but not too much friction to make it to a point where you're like, it's overwhelming. I'm like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. Those types of things. So whenever you were in that, is that something that you guys would talk about? Did you strategize, or was it just more just through osmosis you sort of learned these things, or was it more of a actual focus?
No, I mean it was a combination, to be honest, of everything. So after he would put me on the spot, so to speak, we would have a conversation about it, about what was the biggest takeaway, what would you learn from the situation. There was always like some kind of debrief, I think, because that's important. Because otherwise, you'd be like, "Oh my God, what just happened?" So there would be an explanation. Because I have to say that he's a very empathetic person as well. So he wouldn't just like put you in a situation and then if you mess up or if you shine, there would be a feedback about it. And I think that's equally as important, because you can't just teach someone something by saying, here you go, here's the situation, but then what's the learning from it? And feedback isn't, here's 5 things that you did amazingly, here's a few things you need work on. So I think that's also super important as well, the feedback after.
Yeah, sometimes I think that debrief is one of those almost more important
Yeah.
in some situations, just to, because like you'll be sitting there thinking like, oh man, did I do that okay? Did I not do it good? Like, I don't know, there's no manual here, I'm not sure. So that's all good. I appreciate that insight. Do you have anything you wanted to add on that?
No, I love hearing about the martial arts journey. That obviously is something that Ron really loves, but I would love to pivot a bit to how you became how you got your introduction to working in tech, and kind of what sparked your interest. How old were you when you decided you wanted to start working in tech, and then how did you kind of transition over? Because I love the martial arts journey, and I know that it has a lot to do with who you are. Um, but what you're doing in technology, especially in the part of the world that you live in, is so incredible. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about what sparked your interest, and when did your interest get sparked in technology?
Right. I think I've always been somebody who's been very embracing of new things. And so tech kind of becomes part of that. When it comes to gaming specifically, I've been gaming since I was around 6 or 7. I remember the first time that my uncle, who's my mom's brother, he came over and he got us our first gaming console, which was like one of those Nintendo cartridge thingies,
Oh,
So,
you didn't
so
have
that's
Atari though, right? It was a
I didn't have
Nintendo?
Atari. It was a Nintendo. Yeah, I didn't have Atari.
That tells me a
I,
lot. And I
in
just
this
dated
region,
myself.
it's more Atari. It's more Nintendo than Atari. Yeah, that was the first console, and I fell in love with video games. And I've been gaming ever since. So every console that came out after that, I got the PlayStation, I got the PlayStation 2 and the 3 and the 4, everything. And then so I think for me, and that time when I was growing up, like the internet was a new thing, so it's not like you have a lot of opportunity to work in the gaming world. Even now, the actual creation of games, game development in our region is actually not that widely known. We're one of the very few, we're one of 2 game development studios in Bahrain. So when it comes to working in the game industry, there really wasn't much of an opportunity unless you left the country. And so it had always been a love of mine. Like, I didn't even know what kind of jobs you would have when it comes to video games. Like, I was like, hey, can you play games for a living? Apparently there is, but at the time I didn't know. So it's just kind of something that that I grew up with, knowing that, hey, I love video games, but there's not much I can do about it within that industry. And so, kind of let life lead me towards different kinds of jobs and things like that. So I went into marketing, and then, as I said, I went working as an instructor and then as a general manager, and kind of grew from there organically. And I just kind of, games was just my passion, my hobby. And then I learned about the game dev community in Bahrain around 2014 or something. And then I was amazed by that because I was like, oh my God, people are developing games here. That sounds interesting because I also love to create. So I have all these different loves of, I did painting once, I've tried oil painting, I've done like charcoal sketches, I've tried a little bit of music, I had a guitar, all of these things. So for me, video games is like the place where all that merges together and all of it comes together. You've got story, you've got music, you've got, you know, interactability, you've got art, you've got so much. And so I was like, yep, this is it. This means I can do something different every day in video games and, you know, still have lots to do to be able to create something out of nothing. And so when I joined the game dev community, I think that was a pivotal point for me because I realized that there's people around in Bahrain that are creating games, started meeting up with them. There were game jams, which is sort of like a hackathon for games. So I dragged my then friend, who's now my husband, into this as well. And I was like, let's go do a game jam. He was like, we don't know how to make games. I was like, that's okay. There's YouTube, you know, we can just find out how to make a game. And then so we attended our first game jam. It was terrible. We were obviously very, very bad at it, but we didn't win anything. But we had like a sort of playable game. And we were super proud of that. And the next year we were like, let's do this again next year and we'll be so much better. So the next year we attended again and we won third place in the game jam. And so that was like a huge deal for us. And I think that was like the first spark for us because the theme of that game jam was hope. And so, you know, it's synchronistic, I guess. So what we did is we created a game about a girl whose name was Hope. And Hope was in a very depressive state. She was in a very dark place in her life. And so we created a platformer game where Hope it's a dark world, it's a gray world. She can't really do much, but she can activate Hope for just like 5 seconds. And once she does that, that was like spacebar is Hope. So once she does that, her world changes. There's color. She can see different ways to beat the level, things like that. So it was just a platformer game where she jumps around, kind of puzzle platformer. She's trying to find a way to get to the door to go to the next level. And so it was all about that. And so, you know, I think we kind of got this spark. Then we were like, yeah, we can do it. We can make a really great game. We can make it about something important and we can make it really, really fun. And a lot of people appreciated that too. We still have it, actually. You can still go and play it on itch.io from our studio website. And it's pretty fun still, you know, and I'm still super proud of that. So that was the beginning. And then we kept coming back to game jams, kept learning more and more. And then in 2018, I actually was good at my management consultant job, but I hated it terribly. It just wasn't for me. I hated being, you know, it was just, you know, yeah, you're solving problems, but essentially what you're doing is doing a lot of research and making PowerPoint slides. And it just
death by PowerPoint.
Me. I know, right? It just wasn't for me. Although I love PowerPoint, but it was just, I found it too, I don't know, it just wasn't for me. And I was like, again, feeling at a point in my life where I was like, what am I doing? Like, I don't like this. I'm not doing what I love, even though I love the people that I work with. It's not my journey. And so I then decided to start pursuing my dream. And I was like, let me start developing something on this side. Let's see if we can make a business out of it. And then, you know, one thing led to another. And then we created Stories Studio. And then eventually my husband joined me as well. That was in 2018. We raised some money, and then we got an angel investor to help out as well. And so, yeah, here we are. After that, we're now a Web3 gaming company.
So I'm gonna have to clip in the game because now I'm super intrigued by the Hope game. I want to see that because I played the other game that you guys released, and you call it hyper casual game, which I love that term. Yeah. I'd never known that term before. The other game that you have on your Blue Studio platform through the app where you're like cleaning the waterway for the turtle to go through. So second year you get third place. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It gives,
I mean, what a boost of
confidence. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And then that pushes you into, you know, this whole entire path of creating more games because you've had that early success. But I'll tell you what, where I'd like to dig in just a little bit, just because this is the growth mindset mecca. In that year span, what were you doing to prepare yourselves to go back the following year? Like, what were some of the how to's of that space?
We're watching a lot of YouTube videos, to be honest. We're
Mhm.
also doing a lot of meetups with different game developers in the community as well, who are like working on different ideas, so bouncing ideas off of them as well. Doing weekly meetups, doing kind of because they were doing workshops almost every month as well. So attending those workshops, learning more. I think it's just about expanding your horizons, whether it's through YouTube learning or expanding or just mingling with the people who are on the same path as you. Um, I mean, one thing that I did learn is that people in our game dev community were very passionate about developing games, but I was passionate about developing games as a business. And so I was also attending startup events. I was attending different kinds of, conferences and things like that where I could because that was also my training in my work, where my boss used to send me to all these conferences and things to learn about how to actually create your own businesses, how to have that kind of proactive mindset. So I think learning different things. So when you're talking about game development, I think people think it's all about the coding part of it, when actually that's a very small part of it. A lot of it has to do with game design. A lot of it has to do with user experience. A lot of it has to do with color theory sometimes. A lot of it has to do with storytelling. And so, it's just so much. Sometimes there are just some games that are just about their music. And I also think that people think that there's only one type of game. Like you see like the Assassin's Creed type, or you see like very, very high end triple A games. There's so many games and so many different types of games that it's just amazing. So I think it's also about exploring what you fit in with, what feels right to you, because you also have to set your expectations right. What are you capable of? What can you do? What are you good at? So how does it fit right in with you? Yeah. So I think that's. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it absolutely answers the question. And what an opportunity as well to be in those spheres and really diving in and networking and taking advantage of it at that
Yeah.
point too, like taking advantage of that wealth of knowledge that you had. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because a lot of people that you talk to try and do everything on their own. It's always they want to like just do it all on themselves, and it's not always is that possible. You got to reach out and again get outside of your comfort zone and talk to other people that have done it before, have had success. And not to say that you're going to steal that idea, but I mean, to recreate the wheel every single time, you're never going to get anywhere. So I love that you brought that up. And the game design piece, I took this class in college. It was about just lighting in theater, and just the different ways that you can use lighting and costumes and colors to bring out an emotion or bring out and accentuate a situation. I notice it more now. Even whenever we went to go see, I think it was Hamilton. I'm pretty sure it was Hamilton. Whenever we watched it on Disney and the blue lights were showing and then the red lights would show, and you could almost tell what they were trying to bring across as far as the emotion of the act.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like when music changes in a scene,
yeah.
even, or like my biggest thing that I tell people about is Harry Potter entries. Like the beginning of every Harry Potter movie, the lighting changes based upon how much darker the plot line gets as you go. Like Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is super bright, but when you get to Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the entry is like super duper dark, like that experience for the viewer, for the fan, for whoever, it's wildly different. And I love how much you talk about the complexity of what it takes to build a game is not just about development, Saba. I feel like a terrible mom. I'm going to be honest with you. You took me through a journey because when my son was like in his preteens, he was like, I just want to make video games. And I was like, but like you're not strong at math. Like, I legit was like a dream killer when my son was younger, and like I owe him an apology. I apologize to him all the time for like being a terrible mom. So like parents out there, if you're listening, this is such an important conversation we're having with Saba right now. Don't be a bad mom like I was. We can encourage our kids that this is a viable and feasible future, because it's more than just because back, I got to be honest with you though, back whenever he was a preteen, I'm going to like try to make myself feel a little bit better. The 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 story that we told, that was told to people who wanted to get into gaming, is you had to be a sophisticated MIT graduate to do anything in the gaming industry. And that culture and that frankly, that information has changed substantially because of what you're talking about, that it takes more than amazing programming to create beautiful experiences for people in the world of gaming. And that's what I love about what you're doing, Saba, is that you're creating beautiful experiences for people that are so much deeper than the code set behind the gaming experience.
Absolutely. And I mean, a lot of times we don't actually use code in our studio. So even though I'm a game designer, I'm a game dev entrepreneur. That's what I call myself. I am actually not a coder. The game that Ron mentioned earlier, Deep Blue Dump, we did it with zero code. And so there are tools out there that amazing people who do know code and their brain works in that way, that they've built already for you. So sometimes you don't even need that. I think it's just about going out there. And this was something that I was talking to in another podcast the other day. It's about the questions you're asking yourself. So whenever there's something new or there's something that you haven't done before, like don't ask, can it be done? Ask, how can it be done? And that just completely changes your mindset, because now you're not looking for, oh, I don't know if I can do it. You're not looking for excuses. You're not looking for resources. And I think that just changes your whole, it shifts your mindset from that kind of thing. And then you can pursue anything you want, anything, whether it's ever been done before or not, it will be done, because you just changed that question.
So whenever you look Web3 in the eyes,
yeah,
and you said, hey, this is something that I want to get into, what was that transition like for you into Web3 with the user experience and being able to really leverage a unique user experience? And again, to go back on how it can be done, I mean, we're in uncharted waters here. So you're very much in your element with FuZZieMints. And I'd like to dive in on FuZZieMints and everything that you have going on there. But what drew you into just Web3 in general?
It was desperation and a failing business, to be honest. That's what it was. So
I love the honesty there.
That's the real story. And I'm grateful sometimes, because I was like, hey, if we were actually already in the gaming industry and doing well, I probably would never have discovered Web3, because I'd be too busy celebrating, or I'd be too busy, doing what I'm doing. The gaming industry, it is very saturated. We were trying to break into the hyper casual market, because as a small studio that had just raised enough funds to be able to kind of bootstrap our way from game to game. That was our journey. And so we were looking at publishing deals. We were looking at creating our dream game, which is still something that's on our shelf, to be honest, which required a lot of funding, a bigger team, and things like that. But we were also doing things that would get us revenue right now as a business. So in 2019, we attended a lot of different events. We went to Japan. We had quite a few publishing deals in our hand. In 2020, all of that fell through, all of it. And we were at a point in our life where in 2019, we were very confident. We raised our angel investment. We had all these publishing deals in the pipeline. We had at least 50K of revenue just from one publisher for 2020. That was like a done deal. And so we were like, hey, it's also a great time to have a baby, because we were doing well in our business. We were like, so we had our child in 2020, March 2020, which was also like COVID 2020, which was also like, so everything kind of fell through. And here we were, like new parents, with our studio as our only source of income, and all our publishing deals fell through. The guys in Korea, they call us and they're like, oh no, COVID. And this was like way even in January. I think they were already like in panic mode. So we still hustled. We were still working. I mean, I never had a maternity leave. Like I was working throughout, like, as because when you're a business owner, you don't really give yourself some time off. You're sometimes your worst boss. So yeah, then we were just kind of looking for ways to keep our business alive, to be honest. And when you're in that state of mind, you sometimes push opportunities away that you didn't realize would be, because you don't have that luxury of time or that de-stressed time that you can use to build things, that you can use to get creative. And so we were very, very stressed. We were very in a panic mode. We were new parents, so we also didn't have a lot of time that we had the luxury of before we had a child. And so I was looking at different ways. Then we started doing games for other publishers. That was just like on a commission basis. Like they would just pay us to develop a game. We'd develop it and give it to them. It wasn't paying us much, but it was paying the bills. And then I was looking at different avenues of how we can actually have different sources of income in our business. And one of my friends in March of 2021 told me about NFTs. And so she was like, well, here's this new thing, look into it, you'll get it because you're into tech. I was like, okay, let me look into it. And when I started looking into it, I did get it and I found it amazing. I came from a perspective of a one-of-one artist, actually. So I was like, hey, this is an amazing opportunity for artists, because artists have always been like undervalued, underpaid. They're selling $10 prints on Instagram after working years to get a 50K following. And so here they have the opportunity to not just make money now, but to continue making passive income through what they've sold. So I was looking into one-of-one art. And the first thing that I actually created, and again, remember, my state at this time was new mom, no sleep, really desperate, feeling like a failure because I thought I was going to lose my business and I thought I would have to go and work for somebody else. Oh my gosh. So I drew a FuZZieMiNT. That was the first thing that I drew, and it was cute and it kind of made me happy. And I was like, hey, let me mint this on OpenSea. So the first thing that I ever minted was a FuZZieMiNT. The first thing that I ever sold on Web3 on OpenSea was a FuZZieMiNT. And then I created a bunch of these FuZZieMints and I started putting them on online. And I was like, okay, they're going to sell because the first one sold. Terribly wrong. I did reach out to the first collector and I asked her, I was like, what made you, buy a FuZZieMiNT? And she said, oh, it just made me feel so happy when I looked at it. And so, that made me feel great because I was like, yeah, that's why it made me feel happy too when I created it. So I kind of then explored my other one-of-one art. I got into other Web3 collectives, things like that. And then I was in a Twitter Spaces. This was the beginning of Twitter Spaces, I think in around May or something. And it was my first Twitter Space, actually. And I was there as a listener and I had a question for the speaker. So I, raised my hand and went up, asked them a question. I don't remember what it was. But then somebody else from the audience came in from the listeners, two speakers, and said, I have a question, but it's for you, Saba. And I was like, okay, well, I'm a listener here. So they were like, hey, what happened to all your FuZZieMints? By that time, I had burned a lot of them because there was just so many that I had uploaded. And so, and they weren't selling. So I was like, and in that time, people were like, well, if it doesn't sell, burn it, scarcity, all of that. So I said, well, I'm sorry, I removed a lot of them. They were like, yeah, there was one specific one that I wanted. I was saving up for it. And now it's not there. And I was like, oh, really? Okay, well, I'm so sorry. And, let me think about how I can bring back those FuZZieMints for you. So I did start thinking, and I think that is I think I would always remember that conversation and that question because it's like, it was almost like a sign from the universe saying, well, you had something, why aren't you building up on it? And so, that day I really got to thinking and I was like, there's something here. And that's the time that I decided to make it into a gaming collectible. And I decided to bring it under my business. And, it's one of those things where you're like, hey, why didn't I think of this before? It's so obvious. So I decided to bring back FuZZieMints, but I was like, I'm going to make them 3D because we're going to do a 3D game out of them. I'm going to bring positivity as a major part of FuZZieMints because that's what people felt That's what people wanted. Even this person who came up in the Twitter space, they asked me, they were like, it just made me feel so positive. I felt so happy. It was so cute. So where are they, you know? So that's when I decided that Positive Vibes will be a trade. I started working on it. I started and at that time I didn't know how to do a smart contract, so I was like, I'm going to do the first 100 first and at least see if there's a demand for it, and then while I look for somebody who can do a smart contract for me, who can be my tech partner, web3 tech partner. And so I released the 100 in July of 2021, and they were sold out within a month. So I think I released on 15 July. By 15 August, all of them were gone. And I started building from then on. I started building the rest of the collection and what it's going to be about and what our brand values were going to be about. Because coming from business side, coming from everything, I knew that when you want to build a product or anything, it has to come with a purpose. What's the mission? What's the value behind it? What's your core values behind it? That's how FuZZieMints came about. And we released the full collection in September of 2021. And then the rest is history, as they say.
Everyone knows that I'm obsessed with FuZZieMints, by the way. Anyone who interacts with me knows how incredibly excited I am about FuZZieMints, and not just because of how cute they are and the amazing message behind them, but also because the consistency that you have shown and dedication you've shown to FuZZieMints, even when there's been a huge fluctuation in how NFTs and crypto from a market perspective has been. Like, we can't deny the fact, like, a year ago, NFTs and crypto was in a completely different space than it is now. And I think that one thing that we've seen, I'd love to get your perspective on this, is, we had so many projects that were, selling out because they got certain endorsements, or for whatever reason, there was a bull run in all these projects. And that culture, that behavior has tempered quite a bit. And we can all speculate as to why, but one thing is that the market has shifted. We've gone from a bull market to a bear market. We've also just seen differences in the way that consumers in the Web3 space, that's what I call it anyway, because we all get called different things. The behaviors have changed, but one thing that has remained consistent, Saba, you have found a way to continue to develop and push forward in spite of those shifts in behaviors and how the market. So I'd love for you to tell us about what has inspired you to keep going in spite of all of that, because I know, like, we are all in this space, so we see a lot of interesting behavior.
Well, I'll tell you this, having 700 and something FuZZieMints sold doesn't hurt either.
No, for real.
Like, that's a massive amount.
It's
through what you're talking about, though, too, like these ups and downs. So yeah, I just wanted to say that, because like that's some big kudos, because that's a lot of tokens sold.
Well, and yeah, but like, to that end, like, it's because of, like, why
because
you've
of the
done some of
consistency.
It's been the consistency. So I'd love for you to dig into that a little bit, because Saba, I know you're doing it different. I know you're doing it different.
Yeah. I'm doing it different. I don't know if that always works in my favor, but I'm like, hey, I wouldn't do it any other way, to be honest. I think Alyssa, you talk a lot about morals and ethics and integrity in this space, and so you would totally get this. So even when I was starting out, so in September, in as early as August, the beginning of August, what I was doing, again, which was different than what people were doing then, because at that time there were very few NFT collections that were coming out. They were all kind of spread out. They were not talking to each other and all of that. There were no collaborations. There was no cross promos. There was no cross whitelist, whatever it is, allow this. What I was doing was reaching out to all of these projects and saying, and those days the gas was exorbitantly high, if you remember. to even mint anything. And so people were having gas wars, people were losing a lot of money. So what we were doing at that time is, I think the Sevens project was coming out, and they were the first ones that were doing, as far as I know, that were doing whitelists. So they were allowing wallets to be submitted. And we were like, let's do that too, but let's do it in a way that we don't want people to come and grind in our Discord and just keep chatting away. Let's reach out to other projects and tell them that their holders can come to our Discord, get verified as a holder of your project. I set up the collab land for many different projects, and get a whitelist for FuZZieMiNT. And at that time, believe it or not, it was super difficult for me to go out and educate projects and project creators on why this is a win-win for both of us. Now it's a norm. Project collabs, people think it's a utility you're giving to your holders because you're giving them the opportunity to get into these other projects. And at that time, it was unheard of. I remember reaching out to many, many different projects, and only about 7 agreed, because they were like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And so we had some kind of growth that way in FuZZieMiNT. And to be honest, like, I've never shied away from trying something new. I think maybe sometimes it doesn't work because it's too early, because timing is so super important in this thing. The market is not ready. The people are not ready to accept, oh my gosh, what is happening in this case. But I feel like if I don't do it, I would always have that what if in the back of my mind. Like, oh my gosh, like, I don't want to be the person who be like, I had this idea and I didn't do it. Why didn't I do it? I just like to go out there and do trial and error. And if somebody else can take that idea and make something more wonderful out of it, bigger out of it, that's wonderful too. Like, I really like the fact now that projects talk to each other, they collab with each other. But to be honest, I think coming back to the resilience, a lot of it is like super optimism, to be honest. That's just the person that I am. And a lot of it is also, thinking about the fact that, and this saddens me, that creators, founders, they spend so much time and effort. Well, not a lot of them, but a lot of them still do. They spend so much time and effort creating something beautiful, creating the art, creating the story behind their project. And then if it doesn't sell out, they give up and they move on to something else. FuZZiemints is now a brand that is a year old in Web3. That is huge. There are not a lot of brands that are a year old in Web3 and still active. And so to me, it's just a matter of time until the project sells out. And to be honest, that's not my main goal, right? I think my main goal has always been to create this giant brand that is my legacy, and to create a product for my business that is going to be, the thing for my business, the Web3 brand that I'm creating. So I think it's just about setting your goals, right? Is the goal to sell out? It's great to sell out. It gives me a lot of room to work well, a lot of room to do things better and faster. But does that mean I can't do it without having it sell out? No, absolutely not. There are many ways to skin a cat. Okay, it just means that my progress is a little bit slow. But let me tell you one more thing though. I think that if your project sells out too quick, that is actually not a good thing for you, because you get too distracted, not just with the amount of money that comes in, but the amount of people that come in and the amount of voices that are now telling you, do this and do that and do this and do that. It's just so much distraction. And I feel that the journey of FuZZiemints has been so beautiful and organic. And we've reached to a point where we are now so confident in our foundation, in our message that we want to give, and where we're going, that everything we're building is connected with each other. Like, nothing is a waste of money, nothing is a waste of utility, nothing is a waste of time. Everything is connected, and we know that it's going in the right direction. So being a slow minting project has actually been a blessing for us. We've kind of, the community that we have, it's a small community, but it's, I think, one of the best communities out there. It's people who genuinely care about the project. It's people who genuinely want to see it succeed. It's people who genuinely care about what we're building. And it's people who value innovation, right? It's people who value positivity. Right. And that's the kind of people that I want. I think I would have been very overwhelmed if we had sold out and there'll be people on my Discord saying, when this, when that, what's happening with the floor price, and a lot of your effort, a lot of your budget, a lot of your team would be then focused on just bringing your floor price instead of creating something amazing. And I think that
so true.
Yeah, I think that and I think that, you know, when it's detrimental for, I think, even startups when they raise a lot of money. And a lot of times when startups raise their third round, then they usually go bust after that because they've raised so much money, they don't know what to do with it, and they make all the wrong decisions. Sometimes having limited amount of funds makes you more creative. And I think that makes you do amazing things. It makes you do innovative things. So when we were first starting out, we didn't have a marketing budget. That's why we were reaching out to projects to collab with them. You know, so at the time it was an innovation, and now everybody else is doing it. And I joke about this to my husband all the time. I'm like, you know, I invented collaboration whitelist, you know, and he's like, no, you didn't. I'm like, yes, I did. You know it. And I show him timelines and everything. I'm like, look, this is the message that I sent to this person. Nobody else was doing it. But right now I'm in the same position where I'm like, hey, we're doing this amazing community rewards program that, you know, I haven't really heard about people doing it this way. And I think this might be the norm going forward. So if I had all the money that I needed, if FuZZieMiNts are still sold out, I wouldn't really be focused on that. And I think it just changes my focus. It also keeps me humble. And I think that's good. You know, sometimes it's like when you're building something great, it's okay for it to be a little hard sometimes. I enjoy most parts of it, to be honest, because a lot of it is creation of something new, which is something that is food for my soul. You know, and the other parts.
And you've also been expanding your team too. So whenever you're talking about not being able to, you know, put in that type of that energy into everything, you've been expanding your team and aligning yourself with certain individuals to expand that. Can you dive in a little bit on the expansion of your team and how that's been helping you guys grow?
Well, so obviously I'm still looking for more team members, by the way. So I think it was back in March that I was like, I've been looking for people all the time, to be honest. So I have a Web3 partner who came on in August. That's an amazing dev. And again, whenever I tell them, well, you know, here's what we should do, they're never like, oh, we can't do this. They're like, okay, let me see how we can do this. You know, so I think I'm very grateful for that part of it. And then obviously I've been looking for people all around in Web3. In my region, there's unfortunately not a lot of people that I can partner up with. So it has always been a search online. And then what I've done is look to my own community to see who can help me out in different kinds of things. I have been blessed to have two people who have been working with me. Their positions are evolving and changing as we go. So, and it's largely dependent on what I see as their strengths as well and what they're doing really well at, and then kind of pivoting that way. But so far, I have around 3 amazing people that are around me in terms of tech, in terms of outreach. And now I have an amazing team of 12, 13 champions that are out there talking about us every day, Ron being one of them. And, you know, so I think that's also now part of the champions are part of the Fuzzy team, to be honest, because since we started the program, we've consistently been having mints, you know, every week, when the last few months it was like 0. So I definitely think the energy is back, you know, and I'm putting a lot more focus now on rewarding my community to you know, to also get more awareness out there about the project. So I still think I need more people around me and to find the right fit
when
of
don't
people
we?
as well. Yeah, exactly, right.
It's like you can't ever get enough people talking about it and helping out and creating content, and that's the reason why I wanted to ask you that question, because anybody out there that's listening to this who are looking to come into Web3 and you want to have an active role and you like posting on Twitter, or you like writing on Medium, or you like creating content on TikTok or on Instagrams, like there are so many positions to be filled. It's unbelievable. You don't have to have any money whatsoever to get into Web3. All you have to have is the right connection and a willingness to work a little bit and have fun and align yourself with a project or a group that aligns with your brand and your guidelines of you personally. So I wanted to ask that because that is a call to action that I have all the time is to get more people into the space and create this more positive environment. And that's why I'm so hot on FuZZieMints as well. And just you as a person is what you bring as a brand aligns with what I like to align myself with and with the Stars podcast, with Ron Jordan, like all of it aligns with me. And I understand too that not all games are created equally. And I think that you giving yourself time and space to create and surrounding yourself with people to allow you to focus more on that piece of it is going to allow the game to shine brighter, and also just the project in general, and give people a great user experience into Web3, because if you don't have a good user experience, you're gone. See you later.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So where can people find more about you as an individual or even as a game development company? Are you actively taking any like contract work right now and things like that? And then also you as FuZZieMints. So give me all where they can come get you at.
Oh, okay. Well, the storiestudio.com is our website for our studios. And again, we're putting a lot of Web3 content on it as well. We're doing articles, informational articles on the studio website as well. Because again, it's about, as you were saying, it's about onboarding new people into the space. So we have completely now changed our persona as a company. We are a Web3 gaming company now, and we are actually the first Web3 gaming company in our country. So you can find out all about us on Stories Studio. You'll find information about me there as well, about my co-founder and partner as well. And you'll find information about FuZZieMints there as well. The other places you can go to is the fuzziemints.com website, where again, it's all connected. I have a personal website as well. It's I'm pretty visible out there. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me everywhere, to be honest, if you search for my full name. So yeah, people can find out everything that there's to know is all available online for everyone to see. FuZZieMints website, our studio website, everywhere.
Perfect. Alyssa, do you have anything else that you wanted to ask or?
No, thank you so much, Saba, for being so transparent and sharing so much. Like there's no denying that I'm not just a huge fan of FuZZieMints, I'm a huge fan of you. So it was just, I'm so grateful to get another chance to talk to you and dig in a little bit more about your journey and what you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I actually do want to talk about the game a little bit, if that's okay.
Sure.
Because I wanted to make sure, because a lot of time people, a lot of Web3 projects are saying, oh, one of the utilities is a game, and the game is a play to earn game, and that's what it's all about. But I think it's super important to not just think about the economics of the game, but to actually make a good game in its own right. You know what I mean? So it's not about, hey, you're gonna make a lot of tokens if you do this mission that is super boring, and then it all becomes like a Ponzi scheme, because and then eventually you don't have people who want to play the game. But what I'm really focusing on is to create an amazing gaming experience for people, so that even if they don't like Web3, even if they don't want to get into NFTs, they would still want to play the game. And so again, that's our way, I think, of onboarding people who are not into Web3 but who love games, and we can change their mind from this angle, because they can still, it's still a play to earn game, but they don't have to be into NFTs to want to play it, basically, or they don't want to have to, they don't need to want to earn money to play the game. They'll just play it because it's an amazing game to play. That's what I wanted to touch on.
And that's what I'm asking for from all games, please. Like, don't make it about the token and the earning. It's like, give me a game that I can play that's fun and also uses the blockchain that I believe in as immutable and all of these things that can help. A lot of industries can use the blockchain in very unique ways. These NFTs are just a single application. So really the backbone of it is still just an awesome game. And that's really what I'm after too.
All right.
So awesome. Thank you, Saba, for joining us. I highly suggest everybody go take a look at FuzzieMints.com. Go check out that project, and then follow all the links from there into their Twitter, everywhere. Just give them some love and follow along on this journey. I think it's going to be a unique one. I think it'll be one that you're excited to be alongside that journey with them. So until the next time, as always, enjoy the journey. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you so much for sticking here until the very, very end. If you wouldn't mind just leaving a comment or subscribing or liking the podcast or wherever you downloaded this, maybe it was from YouTube, I would love for that. You take an extra couple seconds to give us some more love, even though you have listened here to the very, very end. We appreciate that so much. Could you also go over to thestarspodcast.com if you found any of this really interesting and you wanted to dive in a little bit further, or go to our Discord, which is Stories Studios NFT. Enjoy the journey. Check out our Twitter Spaces show live every Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a Rug Radio presentation hosted by Ron Jordan and co-hosted by Alyssa Jordan. It's called the Growth Mindset Mecca, where we go over different techniques that we use to hack our minds and our guest minds to get the maximum potential out of each and every day. Check us out Tuesdays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard over at Twitter Spaces.